This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a disturbing case released by police, an investigation by the service's Child Abuse Unit. A child is in critical condition with life-altering injuries. 3 others were taken to hospital. Now 2 foster parents are facing charges. CBC's Mike Arsenault has more.
A school-age foster child taken from this home is now in hospital with what police describe as life-altering injuries. Friday, police were called to this Riverbend neighborhood home in North Winnipeg about the child. 1 in critical condition was rushed to hospital. 3 others in the home were sent for a medical assessment. Sherry Gott is the Manitoba advocate for children and youth.
It's equal devastating when it involves a foster parent. These foster parents are entrusted with a child in care, and they should be providing that utmost support to those children.
A 25-year-old foster mom has been charged with assault, aggravated assault, and failing to provide the necessaries of life. A 26-year-old man identified as the foster dad is also facing a charge of failing to provide the necessaries of life. Gott wonders if foster care standards were being met during the parent vetting process.
One of the things that I am concerned about is licensing requirements of foster homes. Was that done?
Police say the critically injured child was hurt days before police arrived but had not received medical attention. Another child in the home also showed signs of abuse. That child is in stable condition. Police tell us the foster mom is in custody and the foster dad has been released with conditions. Their names aren't being made public to protect the children. Minister of Families Nahani Fontaine says when children are harmed in the province, the impact is felt by all Manitobans.
We're focused on making sure that those children get the supports that they need and that the WPS have the information that they need to be able to do the investigation.
Fontaine couldn't say if the province would do an internal review of the incident because it's still early in the investigation. Gott says the children have been moved to a safe environment.
I hope the best for this child and the other children that have been taken into care and moved to another place. I hope that this child survives and thrives.
Gott says her office will be following the police investigation and might do its own internal review. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police are investigating fires and vandalism at the offices of 2 NDP cabinet ministers. Both represent North Winnipeg constituencies. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
The Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service says it's responded to 4 fires since the beginning of August at the office of Bernadette Smith. Smith is the MLA for Point Douglas and the Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness. The Winnipeg Police Service's Major Crimes Unit is investigating the fires. There are scorch marks on the front and rear of the building, along with some molten plastic on the sidewalk, burned utility connections, and boarded up windows out back.
A spokesperson for Smith says her constituency office is open. Police won't say whether they believe the fires are random or if the politician was targeted.
Meanwhile, windows at the constituency office of Nahani Fontaine have been smashed. Fontaine is the MLA for St. John's and the Families Minister. She was forced to apologize last week for sharing a social media post about the killing of Donald Trump ally Charlie Kirk.
It was in the very early hours, so none of our staff were there. And our staff are safe. They're working from home this week for obvious reasons.
Major Crimes is also investigating the vandalism at Fontaine's office. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A woman who was hit by a car while waiting at a bus stop last week has died. The crash happened around 6:30 p.m. last Tuesday at Abinogi-Mikana and St. Mary's Road. Police say the driver went onto the shoulder of the road and struck the victim in a rollover crash. The 49-year-old was taken to hospital in critical condition and died Thursday. It's unclear how fast the car was going, but police say the driver was not hurt and remained at the scene. No charges have been laid. The next phase of the federal government's buyback program of assault-style firearms will begin with a pilot project in Nova Scotia. Ottawa says it will be voluntary and fair compensation will be offered. Kate McKenna has the details.
Canada's Public Safety Minister announced the next phase of the government's plan to buy back banned firearms from individuals.
Today, we're here to talk about our government's next steps in making good on that promise to Canadians.
But the announcement was quickly overshadowed by the minister's own controversy.
Will the Prime Minister do the only thing that will secure our country and fire this incompetent minister?
Those calls after Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangiri was caught on tape speaking to a gun owner, appearing to undercut his own government's gun control policies.
Don't ask me to explain the logic to you on this, okay? But we're not a problem, Gary. I realize that.
Even hinting it's about appeasing Quebec.
I get it. Quebec is in a different place than other parts of Canada, right? And this is something that very much a big deal for many of the Quebec electorate that voted for us.
The tape, verified by CBC News, was released by the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, who have long argued that cracking down on legal gun owners won't stop violent crime.
They all tell the truth when they think no one is listening. So I think he just confirmed everything that most Canadians who have been paying attention knew already.
You don't seem to have confidence in this program. Why not? And is it appropriate to stay on as Public Safety Minister?
I have absolute confidence in this program.
Anandasangiri spent the day defending himself against his own comments, including that municipalities may not have enough police to enforce the buyback.
The context of that conversation, of course, it was in a context of a scenario that was offered to me, and it was commentary on that.
His colleague, longtime gun control advocate Nathalie Provost, offered support.
A program like that needs a team, needs a group, not just one person. And you see it today. We are all here together with the minister.
The next phase of the gun buyback program will be piloted in Cape Breton. It's intended to start the process of buying guns banned in recent years back from individuals. Federal officials say they plan to expand the program nationally sometime this fall. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's a home for those who may not have anywhere else to go. A multi-million-dollar renovated facility to help support the homeless. As CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports, Main Street Project's new supportive housing space will provide dignity, privacy, and a helping hand.
This will be like the dining area here.
This is the first look of Main Street Project's newly renovated facility at 71 Martha Street. The upgraded building includes 28 suites with 34 beds. It also includes a new common area, a new kitchen, a private courtyard, a dining area, accessible washrooms, and a staff service desk for the 24/7 wraparound support. Main Street Project Executive Director Jameel Mahmood says these upgrades give a modern, high-tech, and energy-efficient touch.
Totally, the whole building will be redone top to bottom. So the main focus of this was to, one, make the spaces a lot nicer for the people that live here. You know, we often said when we started this project that it was really about bringing the love that we give to our community every day into like a physical manifestation and making the building reflect that as well.
With a total investment of $18 million, Phase 1 took 18 months to be completed. Mahmood says this refreshed space will offer detox program and make the place feel more like home.
I think people who are coming off the streets or out of shelters don't have a lot of privacy, don't have a lot of personal space. So be able to have a place where you can close your door, feel safe, keep your belongings in a place.
Phase 2, which will be completed in just over a year, includes redevelopment of the organization's withdrawal management services program and also have additional case management offices. Andrew Dutfield is the facilities chair for Main Street Project.
Phase 2 will be starting soon. It's basically a rebuild of the attached buildings here. There's a number of buildings that were built over a really long period of time. And that will complete this series of buildings on this side.
Mahmood said other options being considered include sober housing or medically supported housing for clients leaving hospital care. He said they would also continue to use the site in the West End. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Let's bring in weather specialist Riley Laychuk. And Riley, a very different start to the morning than what we saw this afternoon, my goodness.
Yeah, certainly a different morning, not just in Winnipeg, but really you don't have to go far outside the city before some of that more sunnier sky prevailed. I wanted to start with a look at visible satellite. This is a snapshot from noon, and you can just see how narrow this band of low cloud cover was. At one point this morning, the ceiling in Winnipeg was up at around only 700 feet. That's why it looked like some of the tops of the buildings downtown were maybe cut off into some of that low cloud cover. So really, the Red River Valley up Highway 75 into the Southern Interlake into the cloud cover. Into the west, though, mostly sunny skies really throughout the day, and that helped elevate temperatures, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Once all of that dissipated, we were into a mainly sunny sky, really province-wide, with the beginnings of some cloud cover starting to move into the north. This ahead of a weak system that's pushing through, which I'll talk about coming up in just a bit here. 11 degrees tonight, maybe some fog patches again. Watch for some low cloud or some fog patches in the morning. Once again, Brittany at 13 degrees and a 25-degree high once we get into some sunshine in the afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
New building, new space, same important work. Why Brandon Women's Centre says demand is growing, and so are they. Stay with us. A women's centre in Brandon has a new building and a new name. Staff at the Western Manitoba Women's Centre hope it will help better connect with their community. CBC's Chelsea Kemp visited their new home.
An affirmation wall in the newly dubbed Western Manitoba Women's Centre's expanded Brandon location is a reminder that there's always going to be a community in need. Jamie Brown says their new and larger location will help more people and break the stigma around domestic abuse.
The stigma is very high. That's something that we've heard a lot from folks talking to them in their real communities, that they don't want to speak out about it. They know it's happening but don't know what to do about it.
The fresh space includes more room for counseling, a dedicated area for children and youth, and a commercial kitchen for food-based programs and a drop-in. Kim Awasik says it's designed to feel welcoming and inclusive.
I think it's I'm hoping that they'll feel a sense of dignity and community and maybe a bit of ownership over their center as well, right? Belongs to our community, but it sure belongs to our women and our children.
The center is also creating new programs and expanding outreach across Westman. Senior advocate Lucia Aguilar says that means the team can better address the root causes that lead to a crisis.
Because it trickles down into other generations. It trickles down into other kinds of problems, like we discussed, right? Housing, food insecurity, financial insecurity, and intergenerational trauma as well.
Brown says the number of clients who visit the center continues to grow. That means they're focused on connecting and making sure everyone who needs support knows where to turn. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
Students being dropped off at a St. Boniface school this morning were rushed inside after police say a person was found dead nearby. The body was found along a grassy boulevard beside Henry Bergeron School. Several police cruisers were seen in the area. Police say the death does not appear criminal in nature and there was no threat to community safety. The school says it's providing support to students and staff to ensure their safety and well-being. It's the International Day of Sign Languages. The province's deaf community is marking it by raising a flag at the legislative grounds. Manitoba Possible says it offers the only early ASL program for children. It says making sure deaf children have this kind of early access allows them to express themselves and be proud of who they are.
The International Day of Sign Languages is more than a celebration, it's a call to action. It reminds us that language is a human right, that every child, every person deserves the opportunity to communicate in the language that best reflects who they are.
The organization says getting services and education in ASL is vital. It adds that everyone deserves to communicate in a way that reflects who they are. A gathering of Treaty 5 nations welcomed some very important artifacts for a reunion 150 years in the making. CBC Indigenous' Stephen Richard has that story.
This is Chief Jacob Barron's jacket, and it's the first time in 150 years that it's been side by side with the signed Treaty 5 document.
And here you feel the gravity of what our ancestors wanted for us in the future, and you see their mark on what they believed was right for us in the future.
Treaty medals and a jacket from the original signatory of Treaty 5. Wapistim Harper is really proud he was able to bring them together.
From right to left, you have the cover page that talks about where the document was signed. The middle page is talking about hunting and fishing rights, and the last page has the signatures from Barron's River.
It was an agreement between Canada and the Swampy Cree and Saulteaux people in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. Later, the treaty expanded north with an adhesion in 1908 to include 40 nations.
They're reunified, and hopefully that gives our descendants from that family hope that things will get better for us.
Chief Barron's family donated his coat to the Manitoba Museum for preservation in 2011. People are thrilled to see a part of their past.
They see the signatures, they see the jacket, and they just get filled with glee, and they're saying, those are my ancestors' hands that touched these items.
Transporting the items is a challenge, but necessary to see them preserved into the future.
So the biggest challenge is light levels. So choosing a room at Lower Fort Garry that didn't have a lot of natural light. So you don't want to put it in a room with big bright windows. So if you were visiting there, like the lighting was quite dim, and that's to help preserve that document.
But this visit gave hope for the future.
we need to look at, how we're going to live for the next 150 years. We knew how we live, 150 years past, but we have to determine, we cannot live the same way. We have to do the past. We have to make our lives better than what they were before.
The Treaty 5 document is kept in Gatineau, while the jacket and medals are kept on display at Winnipeg's Manitoba Museum. For CBC Indigenous, Stefan Richard, Lower Fort Garry.
Riley is back in. And Riley, I've talked a lot about my jalapenos and how they weren't hot or spicy when I took the first one off.
What about the second one?
Well, I haven't done it yet because I'm hoping to wait out these really nice temperatures and give them a little bit longer.
A little time to ripen.
A little more time.
You know what? And we are looking at this stretch of weather, dry weather, relatively speaking, Brittany, continuing as we get through the next even week and a half.
So there's still hope.
There's still hope, exactly. Okay, wanted to start with temperatures here. Quite the spread across the province. Winnipeg, we were under that low cloud cover through much of the morning into the early afternoon. Barely getting above 20 degrees this afternoon. 21, the best we did, 19s through Gimli and Steinbach. But look at the difference. Just a little bit further east, Pinawa at 26 degrees this afternoon. Brandon, Dauphin, 24s and 25s. So what a difference a bit of sunshine makes throughout the day when we're not stuck in some of that low cloud cover. There is the chance that we do get into some of that once again as we get into the morning hours on Wednesday. So as we head into the night, mostly clear skies once again tonight, but I'm going to zoom in here on the Red River Valley and parts of southeastern Manitoba because you can start to see Futurecast here at 7 o'clock in the morning depicting some of this cloud cover forming, some of that mist forming once again. And this is that low cloud cover or some of that patchy fog that we saw this morning reforming again into the Red River Valley, parts of the Southern Interlake, places like Stonewall, up into St. Laurent, likely to see some of that, and into northwestern Ontario. So just keep that in mind if you're out early once again, even into the mid-morning, that you could run into some fog. Once that dissipates, we're back into sunshine. But then this weak low starts to push across northern Manitoba. So places like Thompson, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake through the later afternoon into the evening, a good chance of showers. I'm not talking any major accumulation, but certainly a few showers possible as we get overnight into Thursday morning. High pressure, and behind that clears us out once again. We're back into the sunshine. And then I'm tracking another low to the west of us that will push across the province as we get into Friday that could bring another round of precipitation into parts of central and northern Manitoba. So a bit of back and forth over the next few days. What this translates to numbers-wise, up to about 5 millimeters of rain likely for along the Hudson Bay coast, even as far south as Thompson, I think has a chance at 2 to 3 millimeters of rain. But the story as we head into Wednesday certainly will be the visibility, the potential for some of that fog formation in the southeast once again. So looking at visibilities down less than a kilometer, for example, into the early morning hours into the Red River Valley and into southeastern Manitoba. Temperatures, once that moves through, looking at 25 in Winnipeg, 26s, 27s in western parts of the province. But where that cold front starts to push through, you can see temperatures down around 12, 15 degrees for Lynn Lake by the afternoon. Then in the long range, bit cooler, Brittany, as we head through Thursday, Friday, then we start to jump back up again toward the weekend.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
And here's a look at the Forks. As we head to break, we have more ahead, straight ahead. Stay with us. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the United Nations General Assembly today. He had lots to say about immigration, energy policies, and the growing support of a Palestinian state. It was his first in-person speech in 7 years. CBC's Anis Hadari has more.
The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Donald Trump.
Donald Trump seemed to come out swinging for the United Nations in his speech to the UN General Assembly. The U.S. president rejecting what he called the failed approaches of the past and also calling out countries who have recognized the state of Palestine, calling that a reward for Hamas, and concerns about how the UN spends money to support migrants and refugees.
The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders.
Earlier in the day, the UN Secretary General speaking in defense of his organization before Donald Trump had his chance to speak up.
International cooperation is not naivete. It is hard-headed pragmatism. In a world where there's leap borders, isolation is an illusion. No country can stop a pandemic alone. No army can halt rising temperatures. No algorithm can rebuild trust once it is broken.
But despite those words, also talk of, quote, relentless human suffering in the world. The Secretary General also saying the principles of the United Nations are under siege. Russia's war in Ukraine also in the spotlight at the UN, as Donald Trump called China and India the primary funders of that ongoing conflict by purchasing energy from Russia, something he also said he'll be discussing with European leaders at the UN.
Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them.
And yet, about an hour after a speech where he implied the UN creates and finances invasions, Trump sat in a meeting with the Secretary General and said his country is behind the United Nations 100%, even though he might disagree with it sometimes. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Washington.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has co-chaired a session at the UN with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The main focus was about returning Ukrainian children that Russia abducted during the war. CBC's Evan Dyer has more.
Once unable to travel to the General Assembly because of war, President Volodymyr Zelensky made a point this year of coming in person.
Thanks, Canada. Thank you, Mark, for your strong leadership.
Part of his mission here is one led by Canada, an effort to recover Ukraine's 20,000 stolen children.
Russia has repeatedly targeted the most vulnerable groups of children, including orphans, children with disabilities, children from poor families.
Charged with war crimes by the International Criminal Court, Vladimir Putin and Maria Lvova-Belova, head of an organization that takes children from Ukraine and places them in Russian orphanages or gives them out for adoption.
Russian soldiers have entered classrooms and forcibly rounded up children, taking them to Russian schools and orphanages.
Today, Canada pledged $2 million for an AI tracking system to try to find the missing kids inside Russia.
Everyone thought Russia would win this war in 3 days, but it didn't work out that way.
And Zelensky might also have been somewhat encouraged by a change in tone from Donald Trump.
It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad. It shows you what leadership is, what bad leadership can do to a country.
Not only were there harsh words for Putin, but also much kinder ones for Zelensky.
He's a brave man, and he's putting up one hell of a fight.
And the change in posture seemed to go beyond mere pleasantries.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
But Trump saved the biggest surprise for his Truth Social account, saying he now believes Ukraine is in a position to win back all of its territory and maybe even grab parts of Russia, something Ukraine has never shown any interest in doing. Until today, the Trump administration had always insisted that Ukraine would have to give up some of its territory in return for peace. The whiplash-inducing turns in policy leave Ukraine and other allies guessing if this is a real change in the U.S. approach or if this is just more freestyling by the U.S. president that could all be forgotten tomorrow. Evan Dyer, CBC News, New York.
A pair of international students has come forward alleging a private BC college required them to campaign for a Conservative candidate for course credit during a federal by-election last year. As John Hernandez reports, the school is denying the allegations and says the work was voluntary.
I feel uncomfortable working for them.
Yanissa Capet's Canadian college experience didn't turn out how she thought it would. The international student from Thailand enrolled in a digital media course at Pacific Link College in Burnaby. In December, there was an abrupt change to the course curriculum.
We had to participate in the volunteer in Langley for the political party.
2 students came forward to CBC News alleging the school required their class to campaign for Conservative candidate Tamara Jansen during the 2024 by-election. Emails show the school directed them to work at the office for about 4 to 5 hours each day and take photos proving they were there.
We feel like it didn't relate to the study, and we didn't know why we had to do this for them. Yeah, we also didn't know who Tamara was.
Jansen's office says it was unaware of the incident. The school denied the allegations, saying in a statement, Pacific Link College occasionally receives volunteer opportunities from a variety of community and political organizations. Participation in any of these activities is entirely voluntary for our students. But email exchanges paint a different picture. A campus director told Capet the volunteer activity is a mandatory component of the course because it offers hands-on experience relevant to your learning objectives. Capet pushed back for 2 days, telling administrators, "We are being forced to volunteer, and the tasks involve working for a specific political party. How can this be called volunteering?" The director eventually gave the student permission to stop going, but said, quote, "It is evident you cannot comprehend how beneficial this is for you in your journey to become Canadian," and even suggested a politician's recommendation can go a long way with an application for permanent residency.
That is a false statement.
This lawyer says that's not how PR applications work.
Getting a member of parliament or an MLA's letter of recommendation, for example, has absolutely no bearing on whether one qualifies for permanent residence.
They came here to get an education.
This advocate is representing a second student from the class who is seeking a tuition refund. They filed a complaint against the school, citing both the campaign work and poor quality education. The school has denied the allegations.
Coming into a new country and pushing back against an institution is usually quite the challenge.
Callan and Sadai say there needs to be better oversight of private schools so students don't get taken advantage of. The province wouldn't comment on the case, but said it can take action against schools if students are made to participate in activities that don't align with their education. John Hernandez, CBC News, Burnaby.
Canadian privacy officials have released the findings of an investigation into the popular video sharing platform TikTok. They found hundreds of thousands of Canadian children use TikTok each year, and the company has been collecting their sensitive personal data.
People in Canada need to be aware of exactly what social media is about. And the people that can't make those informed choices, like children under 13, should be protected from having to make those choices and having to try to figure out what is being inferred about them.
The findings show the company used face and location data from children for targeted advertising. And while the platform isn't meant for those under the age of 13, it found TikTok had personal information of a large number of Canadian kids. It says the platform must better explain its data practices, especially to youth. The privacy commissioners say the company has agreed to take steps to address the concerns. The Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, is no longer a patron of several British charities. They've severed ties with her because of an email she reportedly wrote in 2011 to convicted child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. CBC's Crystal Gamansing explains.
The Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, is the latest British figure to be swept into the toxic vortex of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Emails from 2011 sent by the Duchess to Epstein were obtained by the paper The Mail on Sunday. Now, CBC has not seen the email firsthand, but the BBC and other British media report Ferguson called Epstein a supreme friend and offered a humble apology, saying reports of her calling Epstein a pedophile were inaccurate. As her words became public, charities started cutting ties with the Duchess. Julia's House, a children's hospice charity, was the first, saying it would be inappropriate for her to continue as a patron. One of the latest, the British Heart Foundation, which released a statement saying, "We are grateful for the Duchess's support for our work and thank her for her past efforts to help us save and improve the lives by funding pioneering research into cardiovascular disease."
What's so damaging about this email is that it actually highlights the cynicism in which she's approached this. You know, what she says in public isn't actually what she feels in private, and it's a very cynical attempt to keep Epstein on side, and as I say, she remains friendly with him for many years after this, while at the same time appearing to publicly distance herself from him.
Ferguson's books and her charity projects kept her in the public eye, and she still attends royal family events, although she is not a working royal. A spokesperson for Ferguson said her communication was an attempt to diffuse threats of a defamation lawsuit by Epstein. This latest Epstein-linked scandal comes a week after the UK's ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson, was dismissed after some of his emails to Epstein were made public. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
How this eyeless cat landed a role in a Manitoba-shot Stephen King movie. We'll introduce you to Dory after the break. Stay with us. Medical experts have debunked U.S. President Donald Trump's claim on Monday where he linked autism to the use of Tylenol during pregnancy. Health Canada says there's no conclusive evidence to connect it to the disorder. It says acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, is safe and effective for relieving pain and reducing fever when used as recommended, adding that when used appropriately, its benefits outweigh its risks, and that the drug has been used safely and effectively for decades in Canada and internationally. Now, for those in the autistic community, it's troubling. Kaylin Falk is a Winnipeg mom. Her 28-year-old son, Noah, is autistic and nonverbal. Kaylin spoke with Marcy Marcusa and calls this a distraction.
The only time that we get to talk about autism is when it's framed as this is a problem that needs to be fixed, where as parents of autistic people, we would love for there to be a really open-hearted conversation about how best to support this population, for autistic people wanting to be seen and centered in the conversation, which I know can't happen today with Noah, but so those are my two thoughts. This is a distraction, and also this is just replaying this old trope of autism is a problem that needs to be solved, instead of what is autism telling us about the way our society runs, and how can we actually develop strong support networks and circles of care for anybody that's having a different kind of experience.
How does the narrative impact families like yours and autistic people and caregivers when something like this bubbles up? Because you and I have talked in the past about different tropes that come up, misinformation, like, all these links that have been, disproven. But how does all of this sort of impact people, that narrative that, as you put it, autism is something to be fixed?
Yeah, and that's one thing I've really appreciated, is that we've been able to talk over the years about this experience. I think so. Noah's 28, and ever since he was diagnosed, before he turned 2, the question has always been, what have you done to cause this? Is he working hard enough to solve the problem? And we've joked about it before because it's so filled with disinformation, but it's really harmful. And I think what parents need is not more blame or judgment. They need a little bit more understanding. And certainly what the autistic population needs is to say, this is my experience and these are my needs, and how can we meet them? So again, we're having this conversation that doesn't go anywhere, but it does actually cause harm to us. We're just being told again and again, what did you do to cause this?
It's interesting because you say that this is since Noah was first diagnosed, you felt like this comes up. Where does that come from? Is it just, you mean in that bigger sense, the societal stigma, or does it really live? Is it something that families like yours with Noah, would have to live every day and confront in your lives?
I mean, I think it's just we're living in a really fear-based society. So anyone that is having a different experience, we've been taught to fear that instead of listen to it. So this is, people who have English as a second or third language, people who are trans, people who are neurodiverse. We're taught to view that with a lens of fear. So that's one thing. And I think a lot of people, big problems that don't have a solution or that are tricky to figure out, people would love it if there was a simple answer. And so I think what most people are doing is saying, how can I make sure that this doesn't happen to me? Right? Which is, I understand that impetus, but what I'd love is for just a different conversation to happen.
What would be top, the headline on that conversation, Kaylin, about, breaking the stigmas, or that different conversation about autism? What would that look like to you?
I think it would really look at how do we better support people who are having different experiences? How do we grow and evolve as a society to say, what are maybe some of the gifts that people who are having a totally different experience of their wiring, what's the information that they're giving us? Things that maybe don't make sense, that maybe are just social conventions. That's really helpful information for us.
Riley's back in now, and it was a little bit of a chillier dog walk this morning for those who may have been out early.
Yes.
But that is going to change.
Yeah, we're looking at a warm day tomorrow, Brittany. Maybe some low cloud again first thing in the morning, so it might be a touch chilly first thing again. Looking at your dog walking forecast now for your Wednesday. Here's Finley. Thank you, Seb and Helena, for sending this picture in. You can send yours, as always, to talkback@cbc.ca. So just know that you might need the fog lights if you're going out for that early walk tomorrow morning in some of those places through the Red River Valley into southeastern Manitoba, the southern Interlake, where we could get into some low cloud or some fog first thing in the morning. 13 degrees, a light south wind overnight into the morning hours. Once we see that dissipating, we're back into 25-degree territory. By the afternoon, again, just like today, it will depend on how soon we see some of that low cloud pushing off and dissipating as we get into the morning, into the afternoon hours. And then we're into some sunshine and behind that, temperatures close to 24, 23 by supper time even. So we are looking at a pretty pleasant day once again tomorrow. Our sunset, 7:23 p.m., so just over 12 hours of daylight. You can start to see that sun setting against the buildings here in downtown Winnipeg, officially reaching 21 in the city. Far cry off of that record high for this time of the year, set back in 1876. Some places in Manitoba will get close to record territory as we head into the day on Wednesday. Not quite record-breaking in terms of heat, but we'll get close to it as we get into the day. Looking at temperatures around 5-6 degrees into Westman. Clear skies overnight. It's once you get into the Interlake, into southeastern Manitoba, into the Red River Valley, where we have that chance of some fog or low cloud developing into the overnight hours. So 11 degrees in Gimli, 10 in Pinawa, Steinbach 9, 14 in Kenora overnight tonight. And temperatures hanging around close to 10 degrees for much of the north. Partly cloudy skies, a bit cloudier the further west you go in the province as we get through the overnight hours. Shamattawa at 10, Gillam at 11 degrees overnight tonight. Into the day tomorrow, looking at 21, 22 degrees across much of the region. Once we get into the afternoon, we'll start to see that shower activity pushing into Lynn Lake, to Dooley Lake, and temperatures actually drop by late afternoon as we head into the afternoon hours. Still, though, mostly sunny skies into the Pas, 25 degrees, 27s, 28s. Records for Swan River Dauphin around 31. So we'll get close to that record as we get into the afternoon tomorrow. In Brittany, like I said, some fog and some low cloud into southern Manitoba as we get into the afternoon.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, a Manitoba cat can now add movie star to her resume. The feline landed a role in The Long Walk, a Stephen King adaptation filmed here in Manitoba, after the movie's director wanted to cast a cat with no eyes. This is Dory.
She's like literally the sweetest cat ever, which is kind of ironic that she was cast into a Stephen King movie.
Michelle Neufeld's cat, Dory, is now a movie star. Dory is featured in The Long Walk, which was filmed in Manitoba and is now in theaters. Dory was born blind and has been in Neufeld's care since she was found abandoned at 3 weeks old. Neufeld is president of the Steinbach Area Animal Rescue and fell in love with Dory's personality after bottle feeding her as a kitten.
She does not have a creepy bone in her body. I get it, like she was there probably for aesthetic reasons, like her looks and stuff. It is kind of creepy when you see a cat with no eyes. Actually, her whole scene was sitting on a mailbox. They built a specific prop just for her. And yeah, that was her part, is just sitting on the mailbox. They actually had a special leash that went around her waist that kind of tethered her to the mailbox just in case she would jump off or fall or something like that. They were very cautious about her safety and stuff like that. So, but she honestly didn't need it. She just sat there like no problem. She was enjoying the sounds and everything. A lot of the crew, like they had big machinery there, like military equipment that was in the scene. So she was just very interested in all the new sounds. She loved it. She sat there perfectly. Like I heard a few people, I'm not sure who it was, but if it was the director or the camera crew or whatever, they're like, yes, that was the perfect shot. And yeah, so she did a great job. It was very funny because a few of the cast asked if this was her, like what other movies she's been in. And I'm like, this is her first movie. Because she did so well. Like they thought, well, she must be like a veteran. Like she must be in other movies because she did so great.
What was it like when you saw her on the big screen?
It was hard not to like jump up and yell because people around us didn't know what we were there for. And yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Audiences are seeing Dory for the first time. However, this cat is already well known around the Steinbach area. She's made appearances at local schools to help teach kids about inclusivity.
I often ask the kids, like, what do you think Dory can't do that any other cat can do? And they right away say, well, she can't see. I said, well, she can't see like normal cats, but she sees the world in a different way. She sees with her ears and her nose. And she likes toys that smell, like catnip toys, stuff like that. Any kind of toys that she can detect with her hearing and her nose. You would never know she's any different.
Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Steinbach.
More to come straight ahead. Stay with us.
All right, having a look at your 7-day forecast. Prepare for another stretch or continuing of this stretch of temperatures above seasonal for this time of the year. So maybe some low clouds, some fog first thing in the morning, 25 degrees in Winnipeg. Temperatures take a bit of a dip as we get Thursday into Friday with the passage of that cold front. Also introduces some wind, so expect a brisk northerly wind into Thursday at 21 degrees. 23 into Friday, 25 by Sunday under a mainly sunny sky. Boy, if you have any outdoor plans this weekend, this is a great weekend for that. 24 for Monday, 23, maybe some showers on Tuesday. Okay, a couple of weather photos for you. The first one comes from Vivian, who I believe looks out toward the airport. I can see the airport tower there in the background. And Roxanne of the squirrel. You can send your pics to talkback@cbc.ca.
Great shots.
Yeah, no kidding. What's old, they say, is often new again, and that now includes a popular toy, Brittany, from the 1960s.
Slot cars are making a triumphant return, and for some, racing them is a competitive sport. CBC's Tristan Mottershead has our daily lift.
If you grew up in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, this sight might be familiar to you. If not, then consider this an official introduction to the sport of slot car racing, a phenomenon that's making a comeback as a hobby for everyone.
So, what is slot car racing? It's pretty simple. You take a small car like this, place it on the track, and then using this remote, just pull the trigger. But if you go too slow, you're not winning the race. And if you go too fast, you're flying off the track.
The average person, you won't make it around the track the first time because it's all tuning and tires.
Here at the 2025 National Slot Car Racing Championship in Edmonton, folks from across North America are fighting for that first place prize. This is one of the many ways this 1960s toy is making its way back into people's lives.
It's a very nice hobby. It's complete because we do mechanic, we do racing, I also do scenery. So we do, some of the guys do car painting, so we have it's a complete hobby. It's a hobby for life.
And in Europe, this hobby is it's massive. In North America, it's a little bit less, but it's growing, and it's because of the internet. We can all connect together and something that we all enjoy.
Tristan Mottershead, CBC News, Edmonton.
Okay, my nephews would love this. They'd be all over this.
Oh, you should think about investing in one of those tracks.
New
You'd need a
sport.
really big basement for that, though, I think, to fit it
but
somewhere.
less injuries, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Okay.